here solely for one reason: to publicly and definitively declare her candidacy for the President of the United States. I think I speak for everybody when I say no one cares. They just want to know if you're running for president.
I was going to make an announcement, but I saw, I mean, you kind of spoiled it for me.
No,
yeah,
please.
No, I mean.
So that's a yes. I'm going to go with that's a yes.
The big spoiler. So, you know, I'm just going to have to reconsider
sure.
where I go do
There's a little confusion here. Do you like commuting to work or do you like a home office? What's your...
You know, I've spent so many years commuting, I'd kind of prefer a home office.
Oh. Would you like to have corners? Would you like it not to have corners? I don't know.
You know, I think that the world is so complicated, the fewer corners that you can have.
Didn't get to furniture. If one is to listen to the minor and very early ground shaking emanating from the political left, Hillary Clinton is not the shoo-in she was once thought to be for the Democratic presidential nomination. Critics talk of a bumbling book tour, stumbling comments about being broke, and a certain name keeps coming up as the likely best choice. In any case such as this, there is that gnawing need for some context and maybe a good point about whom the right would prefer to be facing. Welcome back to MidPoint, former Deputy Staff Secretary to President Bill Clinton and veteran Democratic strategist David Goodfriend. David, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
David, I hold in my hand, I feel almost like a game show host, but I guess that's what politics really is at times, an article that says, without a shadow of a doubt, Hillary Clinton is completely inevitable for the Democrats in 2016. Put it all away. We're all done right here. Yes? No?
I think it's pretty dangerous for anybody to start measuring the curtains and the carpeting before there's an actual race. And I think Secretary Clinton is acutely aware of what happened in 2008 when she started to run a campaign as an inevitable candidate instead of just as a candidate. So it's my view that she would be unwise to consider it a shoo-in, and I don't think she does consider it a shoo-in. I think she's very, very conscious of how this has got to be earned. It's not a coronation. It has to be earned. She needs to present to Democrats the reason why she is the best candidate in the party to be president. And I think you're right to point out that there is some, I would call it animation, some energy coming from the left wing of the Democratic Party, most readily embodied in Elizabeth Warren, Senator Warren from Massachusetts. But also, look, there are other people who are making noises about running for president. Governor Martin O'Malley from Maryland, even the governor of New York, Governor Cuomo. So there's no absence of variety among Democrats who would like to be president. I just think that in the case of Secretary Clinton, no one should assume anything, especially her.
In the case of Elizabeth Warren, David, isn't it really more an enticing moment of perception instead of reality here? Because honestly, Mrs. Clinton has a tremendous amount of people behind her, a lot of backing, people who are saying that she is the one. Elizabeth Warren really doesn't have a whole lot of people here saying that she's the one. Oh, you have people asking her to get involved, but it seems to be much more perception and media driven than reality.
I would agree with that. I think running a presidential campaign in this era is a multi-billion-dollar, extremely complex endeavor. And I say multi-billion because when you put it all together, all the candidates, all the outside spending, all the infrastructure, really does run into the billions of dollars. And it's not something that you can do on a whim. So if you're looking at a general election in 2016, the infrastructure has to be put in place now. I just was listening to an interview of Republican Marco Rubio, who said right up front on NPR, I need to make this decision over the next couple months, whether or not to run for president or run for re-election as senator. I think he's right. And the same applies to anybody on the Democratic side who would like to take a run at becoming president. Now is the time to be putting together that infrastructure. If you don't see it happening, that means the person is really not considering a run. Obviously, in the case of Hillary Clinton, she has a lot of surrogates around her who are putting together that infrastructure ready for Hillary. A lot of the former staffers, my former colleagues from the White House, are making themselves available. That's an infrastructure, and it's a fundraising infrastructure as well. In the case of Elizabeth Warren, I don't think it's so much the literal fact of whether or not she's running. It's that you have elements of the Democratic Party that get genuinely enthusiastic about her and what she stands for. That ought to, and does, send signals to Secretary Clinton that if she wants to seek the Democratic nomination, she has to answer to that sentiment within the Democratic Party. She has to address it.
Would you agree then, from those who say that the base of the Democratic Party is just pining for a fight here? They want to see somebody else come in, 2 or 3 other really strong people to challenge Mrs. Clinton and energize the base. It's what they want more than really maybe what they need.
No, I would not characterize it that way. Instead, I would characterize it as the base wants to hear from Hillary Clinton how she's going to address some of their core needs and issues. I think most pointed of which is income inequality and the stagnation of working people's wages over the last 20 to 30 years, and what it's going to mean to the future of the country if you can't afford a college education for your kids, or if our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our telecommunications infrastructure is crumbling all around us. That's the kind of thing that the base of the party wants to hear from Mrs. Clinton. If they hear instead a kind of DLC redux, a kind of centrism circa 1992, I think they're going to be quite restive. And this is an interesting conundrum for Secretary Clinton. She knows that, as every presidential candidate does, to secure the nomination, you have to play to the base. To secure the general election win, you have to move to the center. My former boss, President Clinton, I thought was quite adroit at doing just that. And I think the challenge for Secretary Clinton or anybody in the Democratic Party today who wants to run for president, there is a very loud and vocal base that's extremely animated and concerned about disparate income, income inequality writ large, and what's going to be done about growth in the future. I think that's a very, very core concern among all Democrats, but especially on the left within the party, and any nominee is going to have to address it, as well as addressing how you become president.
Let's go to that specifically. I want to stop you right there when it comes down to the economy. There are those who say that it is foreign policy that drives a number of these nomination processes. But you just touched on this right now. Whether it's Mrs. Clinton, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, or anybody else, don't they really have to dig down into this populist agenda of the economy right now? Because if they go anyplace else right now, is it, again, fair to say that they're simply just missing the boat?
Well, I think that's going to be determined in large measure by international events beyond our control. I mean, most Americans, I would argue right now, are fairly isolationist in their views, and that could change in an instant if there's God forbid, a domestic terrorist attack, for example. I mean, look at how 9/11 changed the equation politically for a good decade.
But as it stands right now, it would be the economy stupid.
Yeah, I firmly believe that. I think as it stands right now, but don't take my word for it. You can go to realpolitics.com and other sort of aggregating polling websites, and you can see where Americans rank their concerns. And jobs, economic growth, fairness in wages, these are things that really, really concern wide swaths of the American public. So I do believe right now this is about economic fairness and economic growth.
David, speaking from the left, how would you then opine on those who say that the Republican Party needs Hillary Clinton? It's the kind of a battle that they desperately need in order to energize their base, and that anything less simply would not get them as generated as they need to be to take back the White House.
I would dispute that view, because I think Hillary Clinton, what you just described is the Republican reaction to Hillary Clinton of the early 90s. Since that time, Hillary Clinton has been a United States senator with wide-ranging support in Republican counties and Democratic counties in New York. She's been Secretary of State and emerged extremely popular. Her favorability ratings today across the board among independents and Republicans as well, quite high. So I would caution my Republican friends against assuming that she's going to be a lightning rod in the culture wars like we had with Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton in 1996. It's just not going to be like that. We live in different times. She, in my view, in a general election, would have a greater appeal to the center. And that's precisely what her conundrum is in a primary, where the base of the party is looking lovingly at the far left in Elizabeth Warren. So
10 seconds I got left here. I got to put you on the spot. Biden, Cuomo, Brown, Sanders, Gillibrand, Warren, O'Malley. Which one strikes you immediately as one who could be a contender against Hillary?
I'm a fan of Martin O'Malley. He's my governor. I know him well. I think he's formidable, but I don't think he would win in a head-to-head against Hillary Clinton. He would only be formidable if she did not run for president.
All right, we now have it recorded. We have it down. We're going to go ahead and make sure that we use this again next time and as we move on towards the midterms in 2016. David, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for joining us. We'll do it again.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right, after the break, the latest world news from the Newsmax website mothership, and still ahead this hour, the words Ron Paul perhaps should have considered more thoroughly before putting them on electronic paper, because the Russians found them, and the Russians kind of like it. It's coming up right here on MidPoint, where we question everything.